Welcome to Lockdown Lessons with Terry. Today we're looking at MS Excel tips, and the first thing we're going to look at is how to sort our data so that it makes sense when we look at it. We've got an Excel spreadsheet in front of us, which is the marks for a school. We've got an ID number, the teacher, the name of the student, their marks for term 1, 2, and 3, and 4. But when we have a look at it seems to be in some rather random order. It's not in alphabetical order of name. The teachers are all mixed up. I presume it's in alphabetical order of ID number, which is of no use to us. So the first thing we're going to do is perhaps sort it into the teacher's name so we could see all of Mrs. Britz's students together, etc. There are many ways of doing things in Excel. The first thing we've got to do is select our data. The easiest thing to do is to click this triangle between the columns and the rows. And that will highlight all your data. The next tab you must go to is the one called Data. And we're going to go to, in the Sort and Filter group, we're going to click on Sort. And can you see it's telling us sort column A, sort column B, C, D, and E, and F? That's not very exciting. But if we click that my data has headings, we click on that. Now it's telling us the name of the column. So we want to sort by teacher. And we say, okay. And now can you see we've all got Mr. Scumby's information, Mrs. Britz, and then Miss Peters. So sorting your data doesn't change any of the values. It just changes the appearance of how it looks on the screen. Already it starts to make a lot more sense. What would be nice for Mr. Scumby is if his students were then in alphabetical order. The way we do that is, once again, we go to between the columns and the rows, we click on the triangle, we've selected it again. Make sure wherever you are that you get to your data tab and look in the sort and filter group, click on sort. What we need to do is within the teacher, we want to sort into students. So we're going to add a level. So it's going to sort by teacher and then by name of the student. Do we want it A to Z or do we want it Z to A? We're going to go A to Z and say OK. Now for Mr. Scumby, we can see all his students in alphabetical order. Now this list is much more useful for us to use. The next thing we're going to look at is how we can hide columns or rows, because maybe you don't want to see all of them. Sometimes it's useful if you're Mr. Scumby or Mrs. Britz to only see your own students. So we can pretend that we're Mr. Scumby and we want to hide all the rows for Mrs. Britz and Miss Peters. What we can do is we go to row 21, the first row of Mrs. Britz, and make sure you're clicking in this column here, not in the actual data. Click there, hold down your shift button and go way down to the last student for Mrs. Peters, right click and say hide. Now when we look at this data, we can see only Mr. Scumby's. He's not interested in the other teachers, and it's much easier for him to view it. He can even make it a bit bigger, and here's all Mr. Scumby's data. If you want to know if something is hidden, if you look at the row numbers, you can see we jump from row number 19, 20, and then it jumps to 52. So that's how you know something is hidden. To unhide it, you must click on 20, hold down your shift and click on 52, right click again and say unhide, and all that data comes back. It works exactly the same on the columns. If you wanted to hide all the term marks, for instance, and only show the final mark, which we haven't calculated yet, you could do that. You click on D and you hold your shift down and you click on G. You right click and say hide. Here you can see the columns go from C until H. To unhide them, you click on C, hold your shift, click on H, right click and unhide. The thing a lot of Excel users don't seem to ever look at is the status bar right at the bottom. And this can actually have very useful information for it. So the bottom line across of Excel right here at the bottom is called the status bar, and it gives me some information across the bottom here. If I, for instance, take Angelita and I highlight her terms, her 4 terms results, if I look at the bottom, I can see she has an average of 75.5. There's a count of 4 because we chose 4 terms. And there is a sum of 302, doesn't mean much to us at the moment. We could also get that average for all of Mr. Scumbi's students. We can click here to the last one and click across. We can see the average for Mr. Scumbi is 62.27. The count is 76, and those don't make much sense in our example. So anytime you highlight a bunch of figures, always remember you can go down and look at the average and the sum right at the bottom here.